Hi, guys. Welcome to the Birthling Podcast. This week, we have an amazing interview with Mendy or Melinda McNulty. And she's a dedicated mother of 4 teenagers now. She had them all. She had basically 4 under 4 years old, including twins, which is crazy. And I, I could just look up to her and appreciate her experience and wisdom in that alone, right? But other than that, she has many parts, which we're going to get into what it means to have many parts to ourselves. She's a skilled IFS, which is an internal family systems specialist and a psychedelic integration coach. Yes, she works with psychedelics, you guys. Ketamine, to be specific. What? What does that mean? Ketamine in medicine and coaching and therapy? Yes. She lives in Nashville, Tennessee, where that's legal, and she works with a ketamine, distributor, someone that she can get that from for her clients with referral from a physician. And she has 5 years doing that alone. Before that, she has 16 years of experience in education and 4 years as a children's pastor. So honestly, just speaking with her, I just have just a comforting feeling around her. Like I said, maybe just being a mom alone, but all those years of speaking with children and learning herself, and then now working on this model, this internal family systems model. And we'll get into exactly what that means. Is it about family? Like you're working with your family and ketamine? What? Don't worry, I'm going to answer your questions. And we're also going to be able to connect what she does to pregnancy, postpartum, fertility and infertility, grief and loss. So this really does have to do with you, or if you're interested in the birth working world, what does that mean for you and for your clients, or just yourself as in general, right? Like we said, like we're going to get into it. It's all about all the different parts of us and how they're going to integrate. How are they going to work together to make a productive, happy life? Right. And I was thinking about that movie Inside Out when I was speaking with her, right? And you have this like console with all these different feelings. So we have sadness and joy, anger, and then you become into adolescence. And now we have all these different new feelings and members of this team, right? And she calls it a family. And what does that mean? How are they all going to learn and work together, especially if we haven't healed the foundational feelings of joy and sadness, right? Or anger. So I found it very, very interesting. And I know you will too, as we learn how she transforms clients from these stuck patterns and healing trauma to fostering self-leadership. And I think as we become parents, how important is it that we learn leadership skills? When I work with clients, we are like fundamentally working on our communication and leadership skills to prepare for birth. Believe it or not, goes hand in hand to a successful pregnancy and birth. And how are we going to work through that? And then it obviously going to transfer into parenthood and how we're going to raise our children. If we haven't dealt with the traumas that we have had growing up ourselves, and she even gets into the traumas of being born, right? How are we going to present that and raise another human being the best way that we can, right? So I'm all about teaching and getting out there the resources that you may not know even exist. And I'll let you know, like I met her in my coaching group and I had no idea that something like this even existed. So maybe you do, and you just want to learn more, or you are looking for someone to help you through this, to get your own kind of coach that works with these transformational integration models, maybe with psychedelics. But even if you're not ready for psychedelics, if you're pregnant and you're just like, yo, I'm not doing ketamine, so I don't know what you're talking about, it's okay. She worked with breath work. She worked talking you through those events, maybe preparing you for it in the future. Or if you've had one in the past and you're struggling to make sense of it, then she's going to be your girl. And I'm going to leave her information in the show notes. But for now, let's get into it. I am so excited to get talking to Mendy McNulty. Welcome to the Birthling Podcast, presented by My Friend's a Nurse. I'm your host, Colette McCullicher, a high-risk labor and delivery nurse right here in sunny California. I'm also an OB certified specialist, birth educator, lactation expert, and mother of two beautiful daughters. I am passionate about guiding you through the miraculous journey of pregnancy and childbirth, using evidence and history and asking the reason why. I have some incredible medical friends and colleagues, and we're all here to help you navigate this often overwhelming birthing hospital system in the United States. My goal is to gain trust in birth, improve this system, and provide some valuable insights. Let's make this journey a little less daunting and a lot more joyful. Let's get into it. Okay, welcome to the Birthling Podcast. I am so excited to have Mendy here. Mendy, welcome.
Yay, I'm glad to be here.
Yay. Yes, I'm so happy. I know it's early in the morning, but we are ready to go. And I already gave a little bit of your bio that you've been teaching for 16 years. You were a children's pastor for 4 years, and then you got into how would you even say it? Psychedelic integration,
Yeah.
and the internal family systems.
Yeah.
I didn't want to get it wrong.
Yeah, no,
Tell me a little bit about your history and how you got into this. I am so curious, and I have to know more because I don't know enough about this. I'm gonna have a lot of questions.
Yeah, absolutely. I love to talk about it. So internal family systems is basically the idea that we have different parts of ourselves. So I was a teacher, and we have roles, right? I was a teacher. I am a mom. I'm a mom of 4 sons. And I was feeling so kind of divided, as we do as moms, right? I always say the first thing we get as a mom is guilt. And that's not having enough time with our kids and that kind of thing. And teaching was just something that I absolutely love to do, but I was so drained. And so I began to kind of search for, how do I find more balance in my life? And I was really struggling with my body. I was struggling with just mental health in general. And kind of a therapist, my husband is a therapist, and his therapist said, have you thought about psychedelics? And I mean, we were in ministry. We were like the furthest thing from psychedelics you could even think of. And I didn't really know what that was. And so we kind of began this path of figuring out, what does that mean? The legality of things, all of that. How do we do this? And we found a path of, and there's a lot of really interesting ways to do psychedelics legally. So ketamine, things like that. So we started down that path, and I found so much relief and clarity. And then we found internal family systems, which is really, how do I work with these parts that are identified within me? So not just the roles of mom, the roles of teacher, but the parts within myself. So I talk about that, I have a part of me that loves chocolate cake and a part that wants to eat healthy, and sometimes they're at war with each other. Or, as a mom, I have a part that adores my children, and sometimes a part that's I'm going to kill you. So both of those parts are there. And how do we find validation? And then how do we connect them with our own kind of internal healer, right? That internal wisdom that is available to all of us. And so psychedelics, when I made the transition from teaching, I wanted a role that would give me the freedom to be available to my children. And because psychedelics and IFS were so important in my own healing journey, I started figuring out, how can I help others? So I'm not a therapist, but I am an internal family systems practitioner, was trained through the IFS Institute, and have over the last 5 years built a practice here in Nashville, helping people connect to their own inner healer and help these parts of ourselves feel more connected to kind of that place within us where we feel like we're in flow. We feel like we call it self energy in IFS. A lot of people connect to, depending on your faith belief, it might be God, it might be spirit. It's widespread, and it kind of connects across all different belief systems.
Amazing. So what is the type of person? What are the type of clients that come in or find you, or do you find them, or
so
how do they know about you?
Absolutely. Well, there's several different avenues. Most of my clients come to me via doctor referral or therapist referral. And I also have social media. But basically, it's a therapist might say, hey, a client may say to the therapist, I feel really stuck. Like I've been sitting in therapy, I've been telling the same story over and over and over again, and I'm not getting anywhere. I'm not seeing any shifts. I need something different. So a therapist might contact me and say, hey, I think I have somebody who might be interested in doing some psychedelic work. And that might be going to a ketamine clinic. That might be going to Peru and doing some type of plant medicine. That might be doing holotropic breath work. I mean, really, like, clients come to me having accessed psychedelics in a lot of different ways, or even just altered states. Sometimes clients will have come and they've done hypnosis, or they've done, again, holotropic breath work. And they're like, what do I do with these experiences? And so we use IFS, this parts work, to do that. So to kind of figure out what parts showed up for you when you went and did this altered states experience. What's kind of showing up? How do we integrate that into your life? So it's not just this big roller coaster you did one time and it feels like you're altered, but you're not sure how to integrate that. So I'll tell you, I'm like the most normal human alive. Like I was a school teacher, a jumper wearing, bulletin board putter upper teacher. And so a lot of my clients are just normal people. We kind of draw in the people that are with us. So they're professionals, their moms, their dads, that are just sort of in their life feeling kind of stuck. And like they've tried all the conventional ways and they're looking for something different. I've had the privilege of working with clients who are veterans, who have suffered from kind of severe PTSD. I've had mothers who are struggling with postpartum. I've had women who were struggling with the effects of domestic violence, or even like sexual violence in their childhood. So it really does run the gamut of just like regular everyday struggle and then trauma that's happened in the past, and usually a little bit of all of the above.
Now, is it always like if they come see you looking for some kind of transformation, some kind of movement in their lives, using maybe an experience that they've had, or giving them an experience possibly? Or
So
is it just using?
yeah, so great question. Right now, because I live in Tennessee, and really the only thing legal here in Tennessee is ketamine, as far as like substance type altered states experience. So usually when somebody comes to me, they may be working with one of the like ketamine clinics that I partner with, or if they're like getting ready to have an experience. Sometimes I will have someone who has already booked a trip somewhere, and they're like, oh my goodness, I've just set up to go to ayahuasca retreat, and what in the world I want to do. Or they're like, I don't know how to even access going to one of these things. I've heard about it, especially right now in the collective. There's a lot of conversation about psychedelics because we're right on sort of the precipice of legalization, hopefully, because there's a lot of research going on with it. So the FDA is in like the kind of has just sent MDMA back into like the third FDA, the third rounds of clinical trials. So we're kind of, or phase 3, I should say. So there's a lot of things happening. And so a lot of people are like, how do I access it? And sometimes we can't access it right away, or we connect them with a research trial, or we connect them with a place that is legal somewhere, or we connect them with something like breath work. So all of the above. Sometimes they've already had an experience. Sometimes they're looking for an experience, and I can help connect them with a safe way to do that. Or they maybe have done something like already, and they're not sure what to do with what has happened.
Gotcha. Yeah, it must be a lot to process and to get the most out of it. Why not have a guide or an expert that can help you through it?
Yeah, well, I mean,
I love that.
So the power of this work is that, and why I love IFS and why I love psychedelics, is that you actually kind of have your own healer inside, and everything else tells us we need to reach out to something outside ourselves. Like the truth lies outside of you. And that's just not true. Like, if I cut my hand, I can wash it with water that's outside of me. I can put, some Neosporin on it and a Band-Aid, but the real healing happens internally. And that's the same thing with our emotional pain. That's the same thing with all of the pain we might experience. We have within us the ability to heal, but sometimes we just need a little bit of reminding from the outside or a little bit of clarity to help us kind of realize that healing potential internally. And that's what psychedelics point us towards, our internal healer. IFS, the whole model is built around connecting kind of these disjointed parts of ourselves with, or these polarized parts of ourselves with, our internal healer. And so that's why I love partnering these two things together. So I do have some clients that just purely come to see me for internal family systems work, where we identify parts of ourselves. But I would say most of my clients come because they want to use IFS to connect like things that they've come to know about themselves in these big experiences, or they're preparing for the big experience and they want to know what parts might show up.
And can you, just for my own sake, dive in a little bit deeper on like that family part of IFS?
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
because we're talking so much about how it affects ourselves and what's inside of us, and maybe a transformation. Instead of seeking outside, we go internally to open the door and maybe let things out. But how are we incorporating the word family? Because I feel like that might be misleading, or am I having it wrong and I don't know what I
Yeah.
really don't.
So the idea is that, like, if you think about your family system, like whether it's your, like, nuclear family or your extended family, there's like, everybody plays a different role. Like, so think about Thanksgiving dinner, like everybody's doing the role. There's the aunt that's going to be like critical of you, of what you're wearing. You kind of know it before you walk in the door. There's the one that's going to be like your cousin that you're like, chatting with over in the corner. Everybody plays a role. So internally, we actually have those parts within us as well. So we have an inner critic. We have sort of the one that comforts us. We have, like, internally, we have this family system happening within. We have the one that's like the manager that keeps everybody on schedule. That's like, okay, I've got to, all moms are like, they plan out like, okay, we got to leave at 4. So we got to, da, 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 3. And then by 2, okay, so that means I need to get up at, so we have all those parts of ourselves. So the family that in internal family systems is like, we have this internal family happening inside of us. There's the external family, but we actually have an internal family of parts, almost like a team, and they're all kind of acting together. So the idea is basically in childhood, like I was reading today, and to find out the source of this quote, and I couldn't find the source, but I use it all the time, is nobody escaped childhood unscathed, right? We all have our impacts, and in a particular household, there may have been something that wasn't okay. So for instance, my house, everybody was happy all the time. Like, you just be happy, just figure it out, be happy. That's what we do here. No other emotions are okay. So things like anger and sadness got exiled. They kind of got pushed aside. And then we developed these roles to try to keep that part at bay. So we came up with managers that were like, absolutely not. We're not going to feel that. We're not going to feel that sadness. We're not going to feel that anger. We're not going to feel that whatever. Well, that works. Those managers can keep those things at bay for a little while, but then inevitably it's going to come out sideways, right? That anger, that sadness, it's going to like steam, it's going to blow. So then we have these other parts that come in and like shut it down. So that's where addiction, disassociation, rage, like we have these other big emotions. In IFS, we call them firefighters, because it's like these big things blow up and we need something to shut it down in the moment. So we develop, other models might call them defense mechanisms. We develop these things to try to keep these big emotions at bay. So in internal family systems, we go, hey, let's pull everybody at the table, these protective parts, these ones that manage, the ones that put out the fires. Let's honor them. Like, let's talk about them. Let's talk about the job that they're doing in the system, the role that they're playing. Let's kind of pull them to the table and talk about how they're helping you, assuming positive intent, even the hardest parts. Like, even this model was developed working with eating disordered clients. So even like self-harm, I mean, those parts of us that just do anything to help put out the emotion or the belief. And like, it's like, rather than pushing them aside, rather than shaming ourselves, rather than all of that, we go, hey, let's pull this protector to the front. Let's hear their story. Let's see what it is that they're protecting, how long they've been doing this job, and really build a relationship with that protective part so that we can kind of understand more what role it's playing in our internal family. It's sort of like pulling that reactive uncle aside and kind of getting to know what his story is rather than just trying to keep him out.
Kick him out.
Yeah, yeah.
Not inviting him anymore.
Yeah, yeah. And then he shows up anyway. So
you're like, how can we handle him in a productive way
exactly.
that
And it's
doesn't ruin the whole dinner?
Yeah, and it's like assuming that everything in you is for you. Everything in you is on your behalf. Like, it's working on your behalf in some way. It's just that, like you mentioned, that you have a 3-year-old. It's like, think about these parts that got exiled at 3 years old. They're operating from that nervous system, from that set of skills. And we sometimes just need to update them. Hey, we're not little anymore. We're actually adults. And we don't have to have the same skills that we had to deal with things when we were 3. We actually have a whole set of skills. Like, we have some parts of ourselves that feel really, really young. I don't know if you've ever had the experience where all of a sudden you're like, wait a minute, I'm the one in charge. I'm the adult. I feel like I'm,
all the time.
10. Yeah. like, where's the adult in the room? And it's those parts that kind of haven't caught up, that we are adults, that we do have a set of particular skills that we don't, all of us doesn't know yet.
I think I got that most when I was 20 years old, I got pregnant, and the first thing I wanted was my mom. And we had a tumultuous relationship. She kicked me out at 14. We had all these issues, but man, I wanted my mom. Like, I did not want my mom before that. And all of a sudden I'm pregnant. And I started, she's very religious. She's a Jehovah's Witness. And I went back to studying the Bible because it's the only way she would see me. And so I was like, okay, I'll study. And I started studying until I realized this is ridiculous. You should just want to see me to see me. And our relationship got a little bit better when I figured this out, and I started saying, hey, I'm not you said, I'm not a little kid. I'm just doing whatever you want me to do so that I could have a relationship with you. But I am an adult now, and I'm pregnant and having a baby. And I want that support from you if you can give it to me. And so I had to put my foot down, but I can remember that and that came, like, I was like a child again. And the strong sense of change in your body and your soul when you become pregnant, and then you're going to become a mother, man, that just like brought out oh my gosh, so many emotional. It was a roller coaster for me of things that I was not expecting when I got pregnant. You just think of the physical stuff and the implications of what your life is going to be now. And I was a statistic of a single mom that got pregnant. I was 19, so I was like, I'm a teenage mom. But I didn't realize how the things I was grown up with and all the stuff that I pushed aside just to get by just comes up when you're pregnant. And I'm sure that happens with fertility or infertility. Like, when I was trying to get pregnant this last time, my babies are 20 years apart. So I have a 23-year-old and I have a 3-year-old. This last time, it wasn't as easy to get pregnant. And I went through, a lot of loss. And then I started meditation and breath work, like serious. But what did you call it? What type of?
Holotropic breath work. Yeah.
Holotropic breath work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm sure that's what it was, because I left like on a high. It was insane. And I did everything from acupuncture to meeting with a psychic who opened up my third eye. Like, I did everything from just visualizing the baby, visualizing the pregnancy, meditated every day. And I do believe that had a lot to do with me getting pregnant naturally at 40 and having an amazing pregnancy and birth. And I'm carrying all of that I learned with me as I'm raising her now. And it just goes to show the experience that we have in our lives and knowing the resources around us. And I'm sure if I knew you, I would have jumped on it, because that time was very hard, right?
Yeah. And whatever, like we having the opportunity to heal. So like Carl Jung said, the greatest burden on a child is the unlived life of the parent. And so as when we become parents, we start to realize that, like we start to go, oh my gosh, when we see in our kids, like some of those like places in ourselves that are unhealed, and we see it in our kids, like when we can start finding healing for ourselves, I really do believe in generational healing. Like I absolutely believe whatever the woo woo is that's happening, not only do we help our kids heal by finding our own, by one, just showing them, hey, like healing is possible. And two, like you can trust your gut, you can trust, but like so much of what I learned in my own religious trauma growing up is like, don't trust yourself, don't trust your gut, don't trust your body, don't trust any of that stuff. And as we heal, we learn actually that's where we can trust the most. Like we can trust that in ourselves. And as moms, when we can learn to trust beyond the anxiety, beyond the worry, into that really deep knowing that's there. And also like what to do when we don't feel that knowing as moms. You know, sometimes that's the other thing that happens is like we get so bogged down by the depression, so bogged down by the just anxiety of all. I mean, I had twins the first time and I didn't know what in the heck I was doing. Nobody ever does, I don't think. You know, you think they're gonna. I just remember being in the car, like they're just gonna let me leave. Like they're gonna let me leave here. And
Oh my, it's a running joke in the hospital. Like, now I'm just going to drop you off. And you're just like,
exactly.
it's the thing that I say. I was like, what feels illegal, but isn't? Like dropping you off after you deliver your baby and dropping you off as a nurse at your car and
Yeah.
leaving. And they're just looking at me like, you're just leaving us here?
It's exactly right. And then when they like start becoming themselves as kids and you're like, oh my gosh, like, you know, I have teenagers now and I'm like, what in the heck am I doing?
I know.
And
I know.
every stage requires me to show up more fully in myself, not because I have to be perfect, but because I want my kids to know it's okay to not be perfect, and that we can continue to heal whatever's broken, and also know that like they're not going to do things perfectly and neither am I, but there's always room for repair. Like as moms, if we can learn, like we don't have to do things perfectly. We are going to act out of our pain. We're going to act out of our wounding, and that's okay, because there's always room to come back and repair it. It doesn't mean that we just go around like spewing things, but it means like progress over perfection. And I think as moms, like when I talk about parts, like I have a perfectionist part that's like, I got to get this right. We have to have the perfect vacation. We have to have the perfect holiday. We have to have the perfect picture. Everything's got to be just so. And that's just not realistic. And so helping my kids see, hey guys, we might like miss it. I might miss it with you. And it's okay to call me on it. It's okay to say, hey mom, I needed something different than what you gave me. And I can not, as I've begun my healing journey, that doesn't have to become a character flaw in me, but it can be a place where I get to show up as a parent and show up as a human and go, you're right, I missed it. How can I repair with you? And that is where we begin to not just heal in some woo woo way, but really in practice. Like, how do I come back to my kid and go, hey, bud, I missed it with you. And I am so sorry. What do you need for repair here? And I wish early on as a parent, I would have known that, because I really thought I had to get it perfect. And there's no way to do that. You know, it is growth, and it's progress over perfection. And I can trust that the same gut that I have within me, they have within them. Like the same inner healer I have in me, they have in them. And I can trust their gut about their life and the life they've been called to live. And I think that's what has been so beautiful in my own journey and working with clients too, like helping them see their own inner healer has helped me be more present with my kids to point them direct back to their own self, which was exactly what I didn't get as a kid. And my parents were wonderful. That's just, they were acting on what they knew. But like, what a gift that I've been able to see some pretty transformational things over the years with my clients that I've been able to actually bring into my life as a parent. Like, it makes all the difference.
It really does. Yeah, we have to dive deep. So I would say, with regards to my audience, this is probably not something that they want to do while pregnant. I am assuming if involves ketamine or any type of
Right.
substance
Now,
that you want to ingest.
sure. So, but I will say a couple of things that, I mean, well, depending on how hardcore you are, there are indigenous cultures that have plant medicine that they do with women pregnant. We don't ever encourage that. That's not what we're doing. But it's interesting to read to read about. But
I
you
bet,
can
yeah.
really begin to connect with your own internal healing. Breath work is something that's really possible. Actually, my very first altered states experience was while I was pregnant with my fourth child. I did a hypnosis for pregnant women. And I was the first time I ever had any kind of experience with that. It was a hypnotist that was actually just designed to work with pregnant women, or that's what her training was. So there are ways to do that, to connect with sort of what you were saying, like, with your fertility journey, to connect with that. But especially as you like get to that postpartum state. And I work with a lot of women who are struggling with postpartum depression or struggling with fertility issues and dealing with the pain that is felt within that. And they're looking for, how do I process the grief? And that is very complicated within itself. So there's lots of different avenues for sure.
Right. I'm sure it would be so helpful for loss, because we see a lot of loss in this, um and also, infertility, and then you get pregnant and now you're just living in fear day by day that you could lose this, right? Or you are not maybe as thrilled as you thought you would be after all the money and time you took to get pregnant. There's so many things that can happen in our mind and our body when we are making these changes, this huge transition to bring a child into our lives and becoming a parent. And just as I did when I was 20, and I just needed my mom because maybe I wasn't ready. Like something in me was like, I just want to still be a kid and I'm missing something and I need my mom. And now I'm going to be a mom and I don't want to.
Yeah.
I don't want to yet.
Yeah. It's so terrifying
Yeah.
when you're like, oh my gosh. And, thankfully, I hope that there's starting to become more of a shift on women's mental health. But like all that goes into women's mental health, like when you're pregnant, all the hormones that are coming up, plus the fact that you're going through a huge life change in a relatively short amount of time, there's always complex emotions. I mean, it's never what we think. It's never just like what to expect when you're expecting, right? I don't know if people even still read that book, but that was when back in my day when I was having kids, that was the thing.
Still, yeah,
Yeah.
it's pretty popular.
And it's like, it's not that straightforward because everyone's experience.
I wish it was just in a book.
Right. But what we can do is we can do things that help connect us back to ourselves. So exactly what you mentioned, like meditation, getting connected with a therapist that believes in your own, like has their own healing journey, connecting with a coach. What I do is help people with integration, but it's really just mental health and community. Like I have a really special online community, and we have twice a month, we have like mastermind calls where we talk about mental health, and we talk about not just about medicine. In fact, it's more about like, what do I do? How do I do life after big experiences? And there's nothing bigger than having a kid. So it's definitely part of that. So, but internal family systems is a great model that doesn't require that you use psychedelics. It's just a model that helps you understand your internal framework, because those conflicting things that happen, like, oh my gosh, I worked so hard to get pregnant. There's that. And I'm so excited I'm pregnant. And then also, and I'm terrified and I'm so uncomfortable and I don't really know if I want this anymore. And all the stuff.
Yeah, what's going on with my body, and I didn't know
Yeah.
I would be throwing up for 5 months straight, and
Yeah.
yeah, it's very
And what
tough.
happens when I'm pregnant, like that I'm not that cute little person that just has the baby bump and like my whole nose is pregnant and my whole face is pregnant. And like I'm not just the one that doesn't look pregnant from the back. I look pregnant like all over my body. I'm not the cute pregnant person. What happens when that's the
Yeah.
thing? It's like a new relationship with yourself
Mhm.
and all the expectation that you feel, and then all the questions and expectations from
Mhm.
others, and all of it. And then
All
you
of it.
get home with this baby and you're like, what in the heck do I do with this thing? You know what I
Not
mean?
only that, what just happened to me? Because birth itself can come with all of these micro traumas, and that's what I'm always talking about,
Yes.
right? That we don't even notice for all means and purposes. On paper, you had a vaginal delivery, it lasted 20 hours, you only pushed for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
I should be grateful and happy, but also WTF, what just happened?
Yeah.
Why am I, maybe it did it in a unexpected unplanned C-section, and now, you're still suffering, you're still in pain 6 months later, and you're still trying to process it mentally, and you're like, when am I going to feel like myself again? Who even am I anymore? It's just, you get lost in this just postpartum fog, and
Mm-hmm.
it's not necessarily depression, it's not necessarily blues or anxiety, it's just processing this event that just happened, like a car crash or accident or something, like what
Well,
does.
and one thing that happened for me after my kids, and it honestly took me a little bit, right? Because you're like healing, and I had kids just
So busy.
so busy, and then
Yeah,
it was like,
just trying to sleep.
yeah, and I had this thing, and I don't hear a lot of people talking about this. Is like my body prepared to go through a birth process, right? And then because of how my kids were, I had twins first, and how they were, I had to have a C-section. It was planned, but and then after that, I just had doctors, and I didn't have birth professionals like what you're offering. That's like gave me that, hey, I have options here. Like it was like I had the option. Nobody ever said the words VBAC to me. Like that wasn't a thing. So I had, 3 C-sections, and processing the trauma of my body preparing to do this supernatural thing and never getting to do it like getting cut off. Like
Yeah.
that didn't come to me till I like a little bit later after my kid, like the grief, once I realized I'm not ever going to have kids again, like that I'm that part of my life is done, and I never went through that experience. And also like a whole nother like can of worms is there's actually a significant amount of research done by a man named Stan Groff, who talks about, he has these birth
Sam Raw, who.
Stan Groff. And he is a researcher going back to the psychedelics, in psychedelics, and he has a whole body of research around the birth matrices and how our own birth, like our own coming through and our own forming, how that affects us. And one of the profound things, and I see it all the time, is people having birth experiences within psychedelics, and honestly rebirth experiences, because they may have like, and it is insane to me. It's so crazy, but people will come to me and they're like, Mendy, I was in my plant medicine experience, or I was in my ketamine, and I felt like I was in a womb, and it was like I could even hear the people and all this. And then they'll go back and verify things with their mom, and they're like, no, that really happened that way. I've had people not know that they had a cord wrapped around their neck and feel that in a psychedelic experience, and then go verify it with a parent, and sure enough, it happened. So when we think about, there's a book out there called The Body Keeps the Score, and it's this idea that our bodies hold trauma. Of course they do. It's like our cells hold that information. And so when our bodies go through an experience to believe in birth, that as babies, it's not only like what the mom is going through, but it's also what the baby is going through, and the trauma of being born. I mean, being born even under the most beautiful of circumstances is traumatic. So all of those things wrapped up into the whole birth experience, like there's so much there that's almost unavoidable, even in the most perfectly planned out birth plan that goes exactly as mom expected. There's still stuff that remains, because that's just kind of that birth death cycle of like, there's always
life. Yeah.
it's life, it's there. And so having the opportunity to seek healing from those things that are just inevitable, it doesn't have to mean you did something wrong. It doesn't have to mean something didn't go as planned. It's just kind of part of the process. Having somewhere to go to process that, and in these deeper states, whether it's hypnosis, whether it's plant medicine, whether it's ketamine, whatever the case is, breath work, getting below those defense mechanisms to be able to see what's really kind of, when you like pop the hood and look under and see what's going on, it really does help us get to that deeper place.
And I think that's way more healthier than, that's even a way you say that, but than just going to your doctor and getting prescription medication and taking that and thinking, poof, I'm going to be all better. And I can at least get through my day to day without maybe losing my head, or,
and,
you know, I can open my eyes and go through the functions because now I'm on lorazepam or whatever it is.
Right.
We're not actually healing the core issue.
Yeah. And so stabilization is necessary sometimes, right? So sometimes we need to stabilize just to like figure it out.
Talk.
Yeah.
My mom, that's how my mom is.
Yeah. But what happens is and I see this a lot, and I love the doctors that I work with, because typically kind of on the same page, like stabilization is great, but what we don't talk about with people is that you can't, when you're just like this all the time, you don't feel the high highs or the low lows. It keeps you from dipping way low, but it also keeps you from going high. And you get to this, and I experienced that. Like, I went on antidepressants after my second pregnancy, and I couldn't feel anything. I was just like flat, which was okay. It brought me stabilized, but I couldn't go up. And when you have a baby, you want to feel those high highs. I want to be super excited when my kid is doing the new thing, but I couldn't get there, and everything just felt vanilla without any sprinkles. And so, you know, to moms that need that, like, there's no shame in it to get stabilized, but also realizing that that's what it is, though. It's a stabilizer, and it shouldn't be our end goal. It's like taking Tylenol. It's just going to deal with the symptom. It's not going to deal with the root problem. And so when we do that for 30 years is when it really can compound into actually being more detrimental than helpful. So really seeking something to get to the root of what is causing that, whether it's just, you know, that hormonal imbalance, or whether there's childhood trauma that needs to be dealt with, or whatever the case may be, it's really kind of important to see what's below the surface.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it'd be like going to your doctor, getting the medication, and then once you're stable, you're going to go into therapy. You're going to start talking. You're going to start getting it out, right? So then what would be the deciding factor whether maybe therapy would be the better option, or this integration type of healing?
Yeah. So
how would you decide between doing either of those?
I would say,
or is both good?
It's both. I mean, really, it's both. Like, I think, like, I work hand in hand with therapists primarily because they'll go, you know what, I can provide therapy, the weekly therapy, but they need, you know, this like specialized parts work thing. So a client that's working with a therapist may come to me on an individual session to see like what this kind of nuanced parts work, like my defensive part, or my critical part, or whatever. And then they also might come to me because I have this really great community of other people that are like, yeah, me too. Like, that's what I think is so beneficial. You know, we are wounded in community, and so often we need to heal in community. You know, we, most of the time when we kind of come up out of childhood, we have a lot of distrust of communities, and so we need a safe place to come to process what happened, or what is happening, and have somebody else go, hey, yeah, me too. And that's sort of what my little community provides. But we do that in conjunction with really great therapeutic work. And then the tool, because we always want the tool to be you. Like you're like, I live in Nashville, so it's all about music, right? So I say, nobody gets excited about the soundboard. That's what therapy is. That's what psychedelics is. That's what IFS is. It's just the soundboard. You're the music. Like you're the thing that is. And so we want to just give you as many tools as possible to point to you, to point to your own inner leadership, your own self leadership, your own healing, so that you can feel more behind your eyes. We talk about living caught up. So it's like, there's a phrase I use with clients all the time, and I use it with myself as a parent. If it's hysterical, it's historical. So if I'm blowing up at my kids for something that is really small, it has nothing to do with what's happening in the moment. It has to do with something else going on in me. So typically at that point, I need to get still. I need to get quiet. I need to get curious about what's happening in here. And I can find, okay, I feel really scared because things feel out of control. Or maybe I feel scared because nobody's hearing me. I feel like I don't have a voice. I feel unsafe because my home is in destruction, and there are people that feel out of control in my space, and I don't feel like it's a myriad of different things. But I can see, oh, this behavior is happening in an escalated way, not because what's current. I'm not living caught up in the moment. It's like nobody gets that angry about dishes in the sink. It's about something that's beyond that. It's about, I'm tired of not being heard. It's about feeling disrespected. It's about whatever else that's actually an old tape running in the background of our story. And as when we heal, we start to kind of get caught up and up to date. And I can say, hey, I feel like you guys aren't hearing me. I feel really disrespected when I ask you to do something and you're not doing it. So at that point, my kids respond a lot better when I can use that kind of language rather than just flipping the F out because something's not done. And certainly my husband responds better when I'm living more caught up into this moment rather than in some old narrative that I'm not worthy to be heard.
Right. It's giving kind of a different you're like learning a new language or a communication tool or just way to process it in order to relay it to
Yeah.
yourself and then to those around you.
Well, and as we heal, we kind of start to move, like we kind of, that stuff starts to happen more naturally because we're more in tune. We're more self aware of what's happening. It's like in IFS, we call it a U turn. If I have a big explosion with my kids, it's about something happening here. Now, that doesn't give people a pass for bad behavior, but it does help me get curious about what's going on inside of me. Why am I reacting in the way that I'm reacting? That has to do with me. And so I can get curious about my own internal experience, and I'm responsible for my experience. I'm responsible for what's happening in me. And so I can get curious about that, and I can name it when it needs to be named with whoever needs, in the appropriate way. But as my healing journey continues, I can get more clarity around all of that. Doesn't mean life's perfect because life's going to keep giving you curriculum, right? But you have more skills to work through that curriculum in a more eloquent way.
I love that. Well, this is amazing. I am honestly learning so much. I didn't even know this existed. And though, I've grown up, growing up in the 90s and 2000s, like I've experimented and have my time as
Sure.
well. And I went through my own healing that way. And that's why I've moved to meditation and breath work. And I can see such value in that. And just also just growing as a person and being open to what is okay like what is healthy and what is not. And sometimes it's having a really great partner that can lifts up a mirror in such a way that you're like, oh, that's not how I want to behave. That won't work if I value this relationship, and so I probably should check it. And then you bring kids into the mix, or maybe you bring kids and then you meet the partner. However your family goes, the more you bring people around you that you love, the more you're going to want, hopefully, to fix that and not just rely on maybe other mechanisms like the TV or social media or alcohol or your job, like, or outside sources that may not be as healthy, and you're not actually fixing the problem that you care about and you love. Because at the end of the day, when we're on our deathbed, that's what's going to be the most important thing, is how did I treat the people that I love, and how did they love me back, and did I give them everything that I had in a healthy way? I'm sure.
Yeah.
And
And did I
we
give
really
myself?
touch that when we're pregnant.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. How do I
How
love
did I
myself?
how did I love myself enough? Because that's how we teach, like, when we're pregnant. I remember when I was pregnant, it was the first time I ever really like got serious about worried about what I was eating.
Yes.
Because it was
Yeah.
like, oh, I need to care for myself because
It's
I'm
not just
caring.
me anymore.
Yeah, it's not just me anymore. And it's like, oh wow, like, and when we can learn to care for ourselves, even when that baby is outside of us, we're still nourishing them because we're taking care of me. We show I have value, you have value. I look at my kid and I'm like, oh my God, you're the most valuable thing in the whole world. And if I don't learn to care for myself in that same way, then they're going to walk around with that burden of self-loathing or whatever we want to call it. And it's like, when we think about caring for others, we have to put ourselves at the top of that list, because that's ultimately all the analogies. We can't pour from an empty cup, all of those things. And we are teaching our kids how to love themselves by loving ourselves. And that's, at the end of the day, how we can, like, on our deathbed, go, did I give everything? And if I've cared for me, then I've cared for others.
I thought 100%. Yeah. How are we treating those that we love so much, and how are we treating ourselves? And it's, if you're for the audience, if you're listening, just know that you're not alone. If you're going through these things, you are maybe working to get pregnant, or you are pregnant, and all of a sudden you're like, I have to take care of myself, and I should exercise. I need to eat right. My mom found religion when I was 6 months old. She became a Jehovah's Witness. And that's because they came to her door at such a vulnerable time that she's like, I have nothing to teach my baby. I have no religion. She had her own hangups growing up, and she had her own traumas and issues that she was dealing with. And she was just soul searching at that point. And she just wanted to give her daughter something to believe in, right? And a faith. And she had nothing. And they came to the door, and she's like, yes, come in and talk to me. And she soaked it up. Right. And sometimes it can be as simple as that. And you don't know how many women come into labor and delivery, and this is the first time they found out that they've had heart issues, that that they're pre-diabetic, like all these issues pop up all of a sudden when you're pregnant, because they were not paying attention before. Right. And now all of a sudden, this is the first time that they've seen the inside of a hospital or gone to their doctor. So if you're listening and this is happening to you, where all of a sudden you're like, oh, well, what's good to eat for the baby? Well, let's talk about it, because it's also what's good to eat for you in general, for your life. And it's just normal for this type of event to happen and kind of shake you up to see, because you want to that's the kind of love that you have for this baby. It's biological, it's innate
Yeah.
that you
And
want to treat them that way.
your emotional
Yeah,
and your spiritual care goes to your baby too. Like, you're not just a physical vessel. There's a lot happening internally, and sometimes we don't maybe take that mental health piece as seriously
we
that
don't
needs
know.
there. Yeah.
And if we can translate that and find out what is hidden under there that is causing us, to not be the best versions of ourselves, then when really hard times do come up, when that baby won't stop crying at 4 a.m. and you've tried everything and you're about to lose it. And I mean, there are parents that lose it and harm their babies, not because they don't love their babies or care about it. It's because they hit their wall, and they did not know how to cope, and they didn't do the healing beforehand. And they probably maybe didn't even realize that there was a problem, until too late. So seek out help, even if you're just curious. Well, Mindy, let me know where can our audience find you
Yeah.
if
So
they are curious.
at Self-Led Integration on Instagram and selfledintegration.com, you can learn all about me and about sort of IFS and the awesome community that we have.
And you're in Tennessee, but they can work with you virtually?
Virtually, I have clients from all over the world. Yes. Mm-hmm.
I love that. Oh, this is so cool. I actually have someone I'm gonna refer to you.
Awesome.
I
I
think
love
would
that.
love
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. All right. Well, thank you so much, Mindy. Is there anything else you
Thank
want to leave
you.
us with? One thing you
Um,
could tell this pregnant mama that's driving and listening to
yeah, that
you?
there's hope, that you're not alone. You don't have to get it perfect. You one day at a time, one day at a time, and just deep breaths, take a pause, and get forgiveness and compassion for yourself. Yeah.
Oh, and you have a community where there's so many women out here that are standing with you.
And I'm so grateful
Thank
that the
you.
work that you're doing, Colette, like giving hope to women. Like I wish that back when I was having babies, I knew about amazing people like you out there in the world doing this work.
Oh, yes, I appreciate every single person out here that is staking their claim in this community. And I just love every time I see someone online that's educating and speaking up and just letting women know that, and men and families, that, we can do this together in a positive way. We don't need to judge each other. We don't need to bring each other down. We all have our own strengths, and how do we find them? And how do we support each other? And that's all I want. So, and I appreciate you as well for doing the same.
Yeah. Thank you so
All right,
much.
Mindy, have a wonderful week. Thank
You too.
you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Again, thank you so much, you guys, for listening to our conversation with Mindy today. I hope you got a lot out of this. I know I did, because I really didn't know much about this type of therapy and this type of coaching. Like I said, I experimented when I was younger, and I'm so glad that I did. It kind of opened my mind to things. It brought out feelings that I didn't even know existed. It's crazy that she said that we actually carry our own birth, like our own birth, with us. And I feel that, because that's probably why I'm so connected to how the babies transition, how much we jump in, and, with our bright lights and our aggressive stimulation, it just feels so wrong. Like, I'd like a kind, gentle birth. And again, we have to remember that even with that kind, gentle birth that you have in your birth plan, things like birth alone, passing through that vaginal canal, getting squeezed, or having a cesarean where you're just warm and comfortable 1 second, and then the next second, boom, you're delivered, is kind of intense, right? And that's okay. Sometimes we need these strong transitions in our lives that are like struggles to grow, right? We have to grow through this. So even if your birth maybe wasn't everything that you wanted to be, or your pregnancy, or maybe your fertility journey just to get pregnant was such a struggle, get into deep how it made you grow. How can you grow from it? How can you experience life to its fullest, knowing everything that you know now after getting through the storm? So I really, really enjoyed speaking with her. If you want to find her, she's on Instagram at self-led integration, or you can find her website, self-led dash, no, is it a dash? Yeah, little dash integration.com. But I'm sure if you go to her profile on Instagram or Facebook, you'll be able to find her website and connect with her. I really hope you do. Of course, you can message me at Colette at myfriendsandnurse.com if you want more information, and I can connect you there as well. And if you're interested, I believe we'll probably be doing a podcast soon. I don't know exactly when this is coming out, but I am guessing that we're going to have an amazing workshop next week. So check my website, myfriendsandnurse.com, or my Instagram, or I'll have some kind of promo up as soon as I can to get you into the workshop so you can figure out how to manage the hospital system and minimize those traumas, and what it would be like to work with me as your coach, so that you have a nurse that you can text at any time to say, hey, my doctor just told me to rush to the hospital, and I don't know why or what's going on, and I'm panicking. And you have a nurse that will listen to you and will respond in a way that you need to. And I think that's probably more valuable than anything. But of course, it comes with my full 9-module course to prepare you and your body, mind, soul, using breath work, mindset, all the fun stuff, right? Movement, and you're going to know that labor unit inside and out. I feel like the more you become familiar with it, just speaking with a labor nurse one-on-one, be coming to my group calls and participating in our master classes, and just having that connection with a nurse at your side is invaluable. And that's what I've been told, and that's what I'm preaching, and that's why I'm here. So I hope you do that. You have resources, you have a community out here of support, and I want you to use that. We should not be doing this alone. I've done it alone, and it's very hard. And it actually took a lot for me to reach out and ask for help. And that was during my fertility journey, when I knew things were going wrong after one loss after another, and I needed that support system. And I'm so glad that I was able to let my guard down, my wall, and ask for that help, because things turned out magically, right? And I'm so happy, and I'm happy to be here, and I'm happy to be that support for you as well. And I'm just really glad you're listening. Please reach out to me, okay? Because I love that you're listening, and I hope you continue. But we can do more. I promise you, we can do more together. Next week, I'll get into the erythromycin, most likely. Okay, I'm not sure yet, but I feel like next week will be erythromycin if I'm looking at my schedule correctly. Or maybe we had it last week. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. But I just wanted to close this up by saying that I'm here for you, and Mindy is here for you, and we have a world of support out there. And so you do not have to do this alone. You can be an expert just by having us at your back. All right. Have a wonderful week. I'll see you next time. Bye. Thank you for listening to My Friends and Nurse presents the Birthling Podcast. We hope you enjoyed today's episode and found it valuable. Before we go, a quick reminder. The information shared on this podcast is for educational purposes only and should not be considered medical advice. Always consult with your healthcare provider for any medical concerns or questions. If you enjoyed the episode, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your friends. Your support helps us reach more people and continue to bring you great content. Until next time, stay healthy and stay informed.